Welcome to No Rules Review with your host, Ethan
Hey everybody,
Millay.
Ethan Millay here. Today we're going to be looking at Tramways, a game by Albany Viard for 1 to 5 players. Tramways is a game inspired by Age of Steam and other track laying games like that. This one has a bit of a twist. Let's look at it. Tramways has players laying down track between parcels of land they own and different types of buildings in the city. They own the rails that they use, and then passengers are moved along these rails, scoring points for each section of rail used and money for the entire amount of tiles of rail used. It is allowed to move passengers on competing players' tracks, but you do have to pay them for it. Now, what makes this interesting is each one of these types of buildings, we have blue commercial buildings, yellow industrial buildings, red luxury buildings, and green residential buildings, gives you a different benefit for delivering to them. Each player will have this handy little player aid here. Delivering to green buildings reduces stress. We'll talk about that more later. Blue buildings gives you money or more cards. Yellow buildings increases your stress, but also gives you these gray railway worker meeples. These are needed to lay track, and they're limited in supply. And the red buildings, the luxury buildings, let you turn money into points, because the winner of the game is going to be the person with the most points at the end of it. Players are going to be playing cards from their hand in order to do the actions on the board here. So why don't we look at those cards? The cards come in a few varieties. There are these cards, which are used in the beginning of the game to assign parcels and come out later. There are generic cards that everybody starts with. There are cards you get when you build buildings. These ones are from residential buildings. These are from commercial buildings. These are from industrial. These are from resident or luxury. There are development cards that you will get at the beginning of the game and can get by delivering to blue buildings. And then there are auction cards that you're going to get when you win the every auction at the beginning of the round. Everybody's going to get one card. They can be good. They can also be terrible cards, like this void card that makes you discard, and it's just a blank card in your deck for the rest of the game. Some of these cards do good things like reducing stress, but they have a cost every time you play them. So that's the cards. Now those cards are the lifeblood of your game. Every time you do an action, you have to play cards. Playing cards for one action or one of the icons on them is free. If you want to use multiple icons, you have to increase your stress. Increasing stress is negative points at the end of the game, but remember, there are ways to reduce that. Now, I also mentioned the auction, and the auction is fairly unique in that when you are bidding, every bid you make, you have to pay as soon as you bid it. So if you bid $2, you pay that. If somebody outbids you and then you have to bid another $3, you have to pay another $3. That's $5 total. So this means that players tend to be reluctant in their bidding unless they absolutely need to be first in turn order. Not only are you first in turn order, but you're also getting those auction cards that are up at the beginning of each round. So the auctions drain money, because otherwise there's not much else that drains money in the game, and you can get money fairly easily. The cards, you're building a deck. No, I wouldn't say you're building a deck in this game. I would say you're seeding a deck in this game, because you start with a size 7 deck. Yeah, I think you have a 7-hand deck. And each round you're going to add at least one card to it. So then you're drawing. You're not going to draw the whole deck, but you don't cycle through it except at the beginning of turns. You will draw back up to your hand limit. So that's why I say you're more seeding the deck, because you can't buy cards that work in a combo. You can't you can discard cards from your hand, but you can't thin your deck either. So you're seeding the deck. You're putting in more cards, and hopefully they're cards that are useful. And luckily, many of these cards are multi-use cards. They have a variety of symbols on them. They can be used for many things, and most of these are also tickets, and tickets are needed to move passengers along the rails. And that's another neat thing, is moving them along the rails. Now, I've never played Age of Steam, but I assume it's fairly similar. As they move along the rails, it's how you get points. So you want to make these sort of convoluted, multi-track systems to move people really in a rather inefficient manner, because the more inefficiently they move, the more points you get. You can use opponents' tracks. You do have to pay them, and I believe they do get points, so there is a cost-benefit analysis that needs to be made there. But, the board is fairly wide open. Why don't we go back to the board, and I'll talk about that a little more. So the board, while not necessarily the most bright-looking thing, though it certainly is with all the pieces on it, has some bottlenecks that might not be apparent at first. There are bits of water, and you can never build in water. Mountain ranges cost 2 track actions to build through rather than 1. And as you build, you can share spots with other players, but each player sort of owns the side of the square that they have. So there can only be one line that connects these two edges and one line for these two. So that's it. You can only have the two rails in a single square. So you do have the opportunity this game to build track in such a way as to limit what your opponents can do and to sort of block them. So that's good. It gives some good player interaction. You get player interaction over here on the auction board, but you also get interaction on the board that can be rather cutthroat. Before I go away, I completely forgot. The boards, there's so many boards in this game that you can build the map out of. There's 6 plus another 6, there's 12 boards. They're both double-sided with a basic side and an advanced side. So there's a lot of replayability there. You use 2 times the number of players for boards, and you can have them in any orientation. You can have them flipped, some of them not flipped. So, I mean, when I said there's depth, there's a ton of replay value here. You will never play the same game twice. I mean, you could set up the board the exact same way, but if you just randomly grab them, you're never going to play the same game twice. And I saw Albany Viard himself had tweeted some images of Tramways in Paris and Tramways in New York, so I'm curious if he's going to make some expansion maps. I don't know if they'd be single boards that are supposed to be those cities, or if they'd be sets of boards that are supposed to be, Paris and New York. And I would like to see this sort of have an Age of Steam kind of flavor. There's thousands of maps, it seems, for Age of Steam. I'd like the same thing for Tramways. Maybe I'll even have to look into making one myself. But that's it. I didn't want to forget that. So, negatives. Honestly, there aren't that many negatives. It can be a little bit complicated at first for new players, the idea of playing cards for actions, because many people, when you tell them you have one action, are going to think that means one card when they think of a deck builder game. But of course, it's as many cards as you want and as many icons on those cards as you want, depending on how much you want to increase your stress. So you can play a ton of cards and not increase your stress much at all, or play a few cards and increase your stress quite a bit. So that's a bit of a negative, which again it's not like it's a complicated game. I'm just saying it could be a little tough for new players, so it makes it a little there's a little bit of a hurdle for introducing new players to it. What else? I know some people despise these tiddlywink monies. I don't think they're great, but I think they're fine. I'd rather have that than paper money. I've been trying to find some good sort of thematic metal coins, because this game, spoiler, I really enjoy it, so I do want to make it look good. It's not the prettiest board. I like the aesthetics of it, but it's not the prettiest board for other people, so they might not think it looks that exciting. I know when I showed my wife, she said it looks kind of boring, and I said, no, it's so much more than that. Now, positives, what do I like? Again, I've never played Age of Steam, but this game, I really enjoy it. I really think it's a really fun game. Laying down the track, it's one of those games, you have so many things you want to do and such a limited time, because you only get 3 actions per round, and there's 6 rounds. So you only get 18 actions the entire game, and in that time you have to put down track, move people, upgrade track if you want to, build buildings, because that's the whole other thing. You can build buildings to put more spots out on the board. You can make big spots or little spots. The passengers are spent when they move, but they're reseated based off of a random draw at the beginning of the game, so you can incorporate that. There's a lot to think about in this game, and I think it's great. I've set up this little sample board in a rectangle, which is what the designer Albany Viard recommends for your first few games, is to play on the rectangle. But I know I saw a picture online from the people over at Heavy Cardboard where they had built this map with the pieces sideways, and it looked like a crazy shape, and it made it such a more dynamic map because there were these choke points that you'd have to work and incorporate into your strategy, and I can't wait till I get a group of people who are experienced enough with the game to play like that. This game has a lot of depth. This game has a lot of just areas to explore and strategies to work out, and so much good player interaction. You're not ever directly hurting somebody, but you are frustrating them, and that's probably the best type of player interaction I can think of, is when your plans frustrate another player's plans. You're not taking anything away from them. You're not taking something and destroying something of theirs. You're just making their job a little harder than it was before, and I think that's great. Right now, this is going It's currently available, unlike some of the games I review. It's currently available. It's currently available from Albany Viard himself with free worldwide shipping till the end of January 2017, if anybody's watching this after that point. I recommend, if you like games like this, if you like heavier games, even if you've never, like me, played Age of Steam or anything like that, I highly recommend Tramways. I think it's great. I also have a couple of solo playthrough videos if you feel like watching those. I don't have much else to say here. This has been Ethan Lang with another No Rules review. If you like what you saw today, share, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye now.
This has been another No Rules review by Ethan Malay. If you enjoyed this video, consider sharing, commenting, liking, and most importantly, subscribing. For this and other great games, join us over on BoardGameGeek.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.